Testing the speaker. Hey, Amy.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Megan. Hi, Megan. I'm going to give everybody a minute to hop on. Then we'll dive in. All right. So I may have to admit people as they join, but this week, Create Your Shape, my 4-month nutrition coaching program, is open for enrollment. And so I'm getting a lot of questions around what's the approach? I've heard you talk about eating more. Is that reverse dieting and all of that? And so I wanted to kind of host this like pop-up call just so I could answer that in a little more detail, but also make it short and sweet and brief, and then just talk to you guys about what questions you have about it, what questions you have implementing it, what questions you have about implementing it in the Create Your Shape program, in anything that comes up. So I'm going to quickly go through the high level of about reverse dieting and then just open it up. That'll probably take 15 minutes or less, and then just open it up to talk to you guys about what your takeaways, your questions, all of that, and anything that comes up. All right. So first, you probably, if you're on this call, if you're listening to me, if you're following me, you're probably in the category where you are working out, that you're probably lifting, and you may be eating. Typically, I see anywhere from 1,300 to probably 1,800 calories is what I see on average. But if you guys heard the podcast today, she was started out at 2,100 calories. But you may be tracking macros, or you may have followed calories before, or you may be eating clean, but you've hit this plateau, or you're like, okay, I know that I don't have a game plan. Like, what's the strategy? Like, how does it work? And you've maybe considered like, okay, I just need to work out more, or eat cleaner, or eat less. Or you're like, I know that I've heard about reverse dieting, but I don't feel comfortable implementing it. I don't know how it works. I don't know all the tools. And so reverse dieting is essentially eating more, right? It's like another way to say eating enough, eating more. And it's the tool that all of the bikini competitors use to continue to make compounding results. So whether you're interested in being a bikini competitor or not, you want to be using the strategies that they're using because they're in the best, they have the best physiques, right? It's literally what they compete in. And so even if you're an everyday athlete, everyday gym goer, you still want to apply that strategy to get the best shape for you. And so it's how they make those compounding results year after year. You see them one year, and then the next year you're like, dang, you grew a booty, or dang, your arms were so much more defined. It's the same thing of how I learned the strategy and have been able to apply it year after year after year, where I don't do bikini competitions anymore, but my physique looks better than when I did years ago. And how is that possible? Through having a nutrition strategy. And that's really what I focus on, the nutrition strategy. And the first step of that is eating enough, which is also called reverse dieting. So what is reverse dieting? Pretty much it is working your way up in calorie intake from where you are now to what you're burning per day. So it could be maybe you're eating 1,500 calories now, but you're actually burning 2,400 per day, right? And most ladies who are lifting are going to need 2,000 plus, or burning 2,000 plus per day. If you listen to the podcast that I had out today, it was 3,100. She's at maybe 3,200 calories now per day, right? So okay, how does this work? That's another question. It's like, okay, I get it. I hear people doing it, but I'm not fully getting it. And so how it works is when you intake more, so let me back up. So first you're burning X per day, and then you're only intaking Y per day, right? So that creates a calorie gap. And so in that calorie gap, right, where you may feel like, oh, I'm not hungry though. It's like, well, our metabolism adapts. And what that means is it slows down our metabolism, right? Also, you may be like, okay, well, I'm training hard, I'm lifting, but I'm not putting on muscle. Well, your body's going to prioritize its core functions first with that fuel that you're giving it before it goes to do extra things like put on more muscle mass. So when you close that calorie gap by eating more, then it gives you the nutrients to actually go into your body, get digested, get absorbed, and then get stored in your muscles, either as muscle glycogen to fuel those workouts, to have more energy and push in those workouts, and also to then recover and repair those same muscles, because it's literally the building blocks of muscle. So that's how you have enough nutrients to build muscle by eating enough and reverse dieting that. The next thing it does is increase your metabolism. So like I mentioned before, if you're eating not enough, right, your metabolism's gonna get suppressed. It's kind of like if you're operating on a budget and you get, I don't know, making this up, $1,000 every month, you're gonna figure out how to live on that $1,000, right? But if you slowly and steadily increase the budget, then you're going to start living a little bit more. Same thing with your nutrition budget. So when you're eating more through reverse diet, it increases your metabolism. Then that also creates an environment to be able to decrease body fat. So when ladies eat more, I never see ladies put on body fat when you do it in a slow and strategic way. I never see ladies put on body fat. I see ladies build muscle for sure, build muscle, which like lifts up their shapes and creates a much more tightened, powerful, athletic shape. But also, because you're being more intentional about it, I see ladies decrease a little bit of body fat. If not, some of them, it all depends on where your starting point's at. Some of them do decrease body fat, even while increasing intake. So then the other thing is you get more energy. Every single round I just had somebody say this in this previous check-in. They were like, I thought I had energy before, but now I'm unstoppable, which is super fun because we just don't know how much energy we're missing out on when we're already maybe typically pretty a go-getter or have a packed day. So that's just another factor. And the other factor is when you're not eating enough, going back to, it's literally the nutrients our body needs every day to have all of our organs working, right? So if we're not getting enough nutrients in for that, right, it's going to suppress some of hormones, thyroid, all of these factors in our body that really contribute to our ability to build muscle and decrease body fat. So if your thyroid is stressed because it's not getting enough nutrients, it's going to slow down how much it processes foods. The other thing too is, almost lost it. Oh, this is also why when you start eating enough and eating more through a reverse diet up, your cycle symptoms improve, right? Same thing, because it's impacting your hormones. So it's so much more than just your shape, right? It impacts quality of life, other symptoms you may be having, and just overall health, but it's also like the key ingredient to building muscle and decreasing body fat. And the best part of it is when you are eating more, you have so much more flexibility. The hardest part of building your shape is being consistent, because that's what it takes. And it's so hard to be consistent when you only have 1,200 calories that you have to work in, versus when you are eating so much more, you have so much more food flexibility to fit in other foods or to be flexible socially, all of that. And then lastly, when you are eating so much more, you've reversed up to, let's say, 2,000 calories plus, then you have primed your body, primed your metabolism, you've built the muscle, you've primed your hormones, you've primed all the other functions in your body, and are in a much better position to then go into a calorie deficit. And then when you go into that calorie deficit, you're most likely going to go in at a much higher calorie intake. Like I had some lady who came to me eating 1,500 and she was like, this is a lot for me. And she worked up to 2,400 calories. And then we were able to go into the calorie deficit at 2,000 calories. So again, this is part of that nutrition strategy. The first step, eat enough, AKA that's the reverse diet part. Then from there, once you're eating enough, then you can go to the calorie deficit. And then that's the time where you really focus on decreasing body fat. But then again, you want to repeat it, right? You want to increase back up. You don't want to stay there. So I'm going to open it up for questions in just a second, but there's a couple more things I want to share. And the questions you guys probably have now is like, okay, how do I implement it though? Like, what does that actually look like? And so it is as simple as what you're eating now. So your current calories and your current macros, you need to know that. Then you also need to know how much you're burning per day. So ladies are typically burning 2,000 calories plus per day. For my typical ladies who's working out and lifting, 4 days a week or more. So you see, that's the gap, right? So then I think it's best to have specific macros, because then you can get even more fine-tuned to you and more specific to you. So from there, you can slowly and steadily work your way up over about a 2-month period is typically the time that I see it takes, maybe 2.5 or 3 months, depending on how big that gap is, to go from where you're at to where you need to be. So the questions people have when I say it's really that simple is, okay, but I'm afraid to eat more. Like, what if I put on body fat? What if I'm like special and it doesn't work for me? Or what if I don't know like what metrics to measure, or what like symptoms to look for, or like what exactly are the key metrics that I should be tracking? What if I'm not perfect, right? What if I have a social event or I have a vacation, right? Then like, how does it work for that? Do I go back? Do I not? Like, does my training need to change, or how does my training align with this nutrition? Like all of the in the weeds stuff, right, is the questions that pop up of when you're executing it. And so this is why I have the Create Your Shape program, so I can guide ladies through that and guide them with the specific plan and the specific amounts, but also collect the feedback that's needed, cover all of the social events that you'll run into, like eating out and going on vacation, all of that, and how to manage that, and know like how perfect you need to be, or how like relaxed you can be, and what that looks like with treats and drinks and all of that. So I just wanted to show you guys a photo really quick, or some photos, because I know those always help. So, and kind of put some numbers to it, and then we'll open it up for questions. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so these are a couple of examples So over here on the left, Ellen. So you can see that she was already in decent shape, right? But she was only eating 1,400 calories, 1,450. And so we broke that down to what she actually needed. And I think actually after these photos, we worked up even higher, but she went from 1,400 to 2,000 calories, right? And built her shape doing that. And we actually didn't do a calorie deficit phase for her. But you can see, like, I mean, look at her booty. Her booty got like gained muscle, lifted up. She decreased body fat around her midsection. And the best part is she got her cycle back. She wasn't having a cycle, which again, going back to, it plays a part in her hormones, that getting her cycle back just represents so much more of her overall health and ability to be able to do this. Then in the middle, I have Jamie. And so she was at 1,200 calories on the left. And she was like, I have a sweet tooth. I can never stick to anything. I'm like, yeah, because it's hard to stick to something that's only 1,200 calories. And so we built her up to 1,800 calories from here to here. And I know we built her up to much higher after this photo too, but that just shows you the progress there. And then down the road from this photo, which I should update, add an additional one to show, we worked her up to, I think it's either 2,100 or 2,200 calories. And then we were able to go into a calorie deficit at 1,700 calories. Right. So you can see how well like the reverse diet did for her just by eating enough. And then it positioned her in a much better position to be able to decrease calories, eat with even more food than she was eating before. And then lastly, this is Sarah. Similar, she went from 1,200 calories to 2,200 calories per day. She is another one that she did not need or desire to go into the calorie deficit phase. So she just made this progress with, I would say, tight abs, perkier booty, just more. She looks like a fit chick now, right? From eating more and reverse dieting up. Okay, so I want to open it up for any questions that you guys have, or let's just talk about where you're at now in your specific goals or desires to reverse diet, any of that. So first, let's cover questions. Any questions on that? You can just unmute yourself. All right, first let me ask, have any of you guys done a calorie deficit before? AKA where you've cut calories. Have you done any of that? Oh, it looks like someone's trying to connect to be able to speak. Okay. And is it Ariel? Ariel?
Oops. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Were you, so have you been in a calorie deficit? Yes, but not an aggressive one. Did you see changes from it? And you guys can, it looks like Megan said she's in a calorie deficit now. Sorry, can't unmute. Yeah, Megan, you can just chat if that works for you. Megan, so have you done a reverse diet before, or where are you at in terms of like after your calorie deficit going into your reverse diet? All right, and then Ariel, I think that's how you say it. Please correct me if that's wrong. And if you guys can unmute, feel free to, and we can just chat. Ariel said, I've never been below 1,500, 1,600. Yeah. So Ariel, have you done a reverse diet before? Ariel says no. Ariel, do you think it's time to? Because it depends where you're at in your like strategy and in your game plan. But if you're lifting, if you're working out, right, then most likely 1500 and 1600 is definitely too low. And so I'm curious to hear about where you're at in your game plan to do one. Megan said, I've been on calorie deficit for quite a while. I have never done a reverse diet. I'm always too nervous. Yeah, that's very common. Megan, what makes you nervous about it? I'm just curious. Ariel said, I am 41, perimenopause. I wasn't sure it would apply to me. So a lot of my ladies are in their 40s and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in the best shape of my life because I have a strategy now. So yeah, it definitely still applies to you for sure. I just had someone go through Create Your Shape who is 63. And she does CrossFit, like she's in the gym, she's crushing it, and it worked great for her as well. Because it's the same principles there, right? And I think that one of the bonuses to that is then you're giving your body more nutrients as your hormones shift. You're putting yourself in a better position to be able to manage that too, which is kind of goes into like the health benefits. But then the standard approach still applies and the standard like reverse diet strategy still applies. Megan, I'm on 1600 calories currently. I still have quite a bit of fat to lose, so it makes me nervous that I will immediately gain 10 pounds. No, that is definitely not the case. Here's the thing is when it's done in a slow and strategic and in monitored way, that's a really good word for it. When it's monitored, that is completely different than just vaguely eating more, right? So if you're vaguely eating more, then it's like there's no consistency in the day-to-day. There is no going back to that budget example, right? If you go from $1,000 or $1,000 budget to $50,000 budget, that person's not going to know how to manage a $50,000 budget, right? They've only had $1,000 budget. But if that person was managing $1,000 budget and then they got 1,100, and then a couple weeks later that 1,200, right? And then a month later that 1,500, slow and steady and strategically, then they would be able to adapt it into their systems to be able to manage it. Same thing with your body, right? You've got to do it in a monitored way that's very strategic versus just vaguely eating more. So then once you have enough food and once your body sees like, oh, I'm consistently getting enough nutrients in, that's when your metabolism increases, which typically I see within 4 to 5 days, people notice a difference once they've just started eating a little bit more. I don't ever see anybody put on body fat. I actually just had one of my ladies email me and she is up, I have to think about exact numbers. I know she was around 1,500 calories. I know she's in the 2K club now. I want to say around 2,200 now. And she got a DEXA scan done, which measures body fat and lean muscle mass at the beginning. And she just got it done again. And she was like, I can't wait for our call. I got to tell you this now because she's down 24 pounds of body fat. That's just pure body fat. And then up 10 pounds of muscle, which is just insane. So and we haven't even gone into a calorie deficit. That's just her eating enough, but done in a very strategic way. Okay. Let me catch up on these. Megan, so I'd be curious your thought now. Where are you at now in terms of like, are you still nervous? If so, what is driving the nervousness? Is it the tracking of it and not knowing how to track it? What is it there? All right, so I'm reading Ariel's. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome that you're an RD and working with obesity. But yeah, you're totally right. It's a totally different category of people. And that's why I share, like, the ladies who I work with are not the average American, right? So the average American does have a lot of fat to lose, right? And their issue is they are eating too much and not moving as much, right? And so a lot of the stuff that we hear, eat less, eat cleaner, work out more, all of that applies great to them, right? And I'm sure a bunch of other things that you work with them on directly, which is awesome. But then I'm really speaking to the subset of ladies who are working out, right? Who are conscious of what they eat, but maybe they're a little confused about everything in the specifics of changing their body composition, of not just decreasing weight. Like, we want to build muscle in decreased body fat. Like, we want to look like we want to work, like we work out. We want to have the muscle definition. We want to wear the tight shirts and the shorts and the crop tops and the bikinis and the sports bras and like feel real good about it. And so, yeah, it's a more fine-tuned strategy for a more fine-tuned shape and for a different subset of people. So good. I see Stacy has joined us. Hi, Stacy. All right, so I'm reading Megan now. So how do you know where to start that strategic increase? Does that depend on where you are currently, or do you start out quite a bit higher? It definitely depends on where you're at currently. So I have all of my ladies collect do a day of tracking that they submit to me so I can see their current calories in macros, right? So that's going to tell me where they're at currently. And then from there, I collect a lot of information about my girls. And then I do the behind the scenes math and science to determine, like, how much do they actually need, and they're actually burning per day. And so let's say you're at 1500, but you actually need 2200. I'm not going to start you at 2200, right? Depending on where you're at, I might bump you 100 calories up, and then by like specific macros, depending what your current macros look like. And then we'll be at that for a week or two, right? Then that's where the metrics come in, because I'm going to collect a lot of metrics from you to see how your body is responding, right? And that'll tell us if we need to go faster or slower, or if we need to change the macro allocation. So that's the starting point right there. Good question. Okay, Ariel says, let me read it first. Have you ever been able to reverse early menopause in any ladies with perimenopause? So I'm not sure if I would classify it as reversing early menopause, but I do have my ladies get blood work done because I do want to see where they're at, just in hormones, in their thyroid, right? In their, like, all of these factors that impact your ability to build muscle and decrease body fat. So your lipids, your cholesterol, your even your actual blood, your glucose levels, all of that. And so what I have seen is a huge improvement in blood work and in symptoms, but I'm not sure if I would like classify it as coming out of early or that specific. But yeah, I definitely want to track at that level, because it's just additional data. It's like a car, right? If your car is running like crap, you're not just going to look at, you're definitely going to consider what fuel you're putting in it and how much, but you're going to open up the hood and be like, all right, what's going on in here? Let's see how all the systems are working. And maybe we need a little more oil here, or to clean the filter here. And then to make the fuel like work even more efficiently, right? Ariel says, do you advise cardio? So it depends where you're at. Typically, if there's a large calorie gap between what you're eating now and where you need to be, I want to pull cardio. I want to remove cardio, because that just creates a bigger gap, right? And we're trying to decrease that. Now, I do emphasize lifting, right? Because as you eat more, you want to use your training time to build muscle and not just burn calories. You really want your training time to create your figure and your shape, and you want your nutrition to manage your body fat. So if there's a big gap, I tend to pull it. But once ladies are past, really past 2000, but maybe even past 1600 or 1800, I think 1 day a week is fine. I think for other benefits of whether they enjoy it, or like I like to go mountain biking, right? Like something like that, or it's just like for like endurance health or things like that, I think it's fine. But then past that, like once you're to summarize, in the reverse diet phase, typically you want to implement that, or you either want to pull it or implement it in just a little bit. You don't want a lot of added cardio during the reverse diet phase. Good question. All right, keep your questions coming, ladies. This is so good. Megan, I'm not sure if you were able to hear, but I'm wondering if you are still nervous based on that explanation, or if you're like, okay, that makes sense, or if you're like, I'm still nervous, but now it's because of what comes up, because it's very common, and I coach on this a lot with my ladies, of like being nervous to eat more, right? Especially carbs, because they've been on the no list for everybody for so long. So I'd love to hear where you're at. Amy or Stacy, any questions from you guys? Where are you guys at? Are you currently tracking your food? Do you know about how many calories you're eating? Have you reverse dieted before? Megan says, well, it makes sense when you explain it. It's still hard to get over the mental block, though, of eating more to have a better physique. Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like, we've had, what, 20 plus years of being told to eat less, eat less, eat less, eat less, right? And so having just one conversation or seeing one thing about it, right, or even a couple about it, isn't always going to combat that like years of beliefs built up, right? And so if your belief of, because you've been told and it's been embedded into you, of eating less is what works, right? And then you're like, well, something else may work. You're like, you kind of understand it, maybe, but then this is why I emphasize teaching and knowledge and like explaining the why in Create Your Shape, because once you understand it logically and then you start believing it more and more and more, and you have the thoughts to believe it, you have the understanding of it, and then when you start implementing it, and then in a like contained matter, and then you see the changes and you feel the changes, then that's when that flips, right? And so it's totally okay to be scared of it, because of course you're scared of it. You've had 20 years of thinking about it plus, right? But then if you build up your belief on the other side, and then you understand it, right, and then you experience it, then you're like this. That's what I see every time. Like at the beginning of Create Your Shape, those are the questions ladies ask, and then by the end of it, they're like trying to convince their friends, and they're like, they don't understand. Okay, so Amy said, yes, I'm in a cut currently at 1750, but my maintenance is closer to 2300. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, so you're down what about like 500 calories? Yep. And so how long was your reverse before, how long were you at 2300 before you went into your calorie deficit phase, Amy? Just curious. Ariel says, so is the program a 2-month reverse and then a 2-month cut phase? Yeah, so it is about that, right? Every person's going to be individual, so it all depends on their individual like needs, but generally the flow of the program and what I see is about a 2.5-month reverse, and then a 6 to 8 plus week calorie deficit. And then you want to, then you repeat that, right? Then you come out of the calorie deficit. Good question, Ariel. Okay, so Amy, typically reverses out of the cuts but she struggles with hunger as she, let me read it first and then I'll read it to you guys. Okay, Amy, so when you say you struggle with hunger, do you mean you're hungrier or you're not hungry when you're reversing up and you got to the 2400? And keep in mind too, as you build muscle, your maintenance is going to increase, right? So I'm wondering if that could be the reason you're getting hungry. Okay, hi Stacy, I'm reading yours now. All right. So Stacy, yeah, it looks like you need to implement a strategy, right? A game plan, because just doing the same, right, isn't creating the change. And so I would want to learn more about Hashimoto's, and definitely as part of the program, right, we get blood work done. So I think it would be good to make sure that we're like managing that. I don't specialize in that, but we want to make sure that's managed for sure. But yeah, it sounds like you're missing the strategy. You're doing a lot, right? And you're not giving your body the nutrients to support it, to then be able to build your shape, right? Decrease body fat, build your shape, and then prime your body to be in a better position to go into that calorie deficit. So I think you'd be a great fit for the program. It sounds like you can apply at, I was going to say the link in my bio, which is not here, that's on Instagram, but at jennythenutritionist.com/create-your-shape. And if you're on, I'll add it to the chat. And when you guys apply, you'll also schedule a consultation call with me so we can talk more one-on-one too about where you're specifically at and where your specific goals and all of that detail. We'll also go over when you apply. I'm trying to find a chat. Where did it go? When you apply, you also get I might have direct messaged somebody. Whoops. I'm going to send it to everybody. There you go. When you apply when you submit your application, you'll get an email of a video of me like breaking down everything in Create Your Shape and the approaches we use, how it looks like in the program, what the week to week looks like, all of that. So that way, when you watch that, then when we have our one-on-one call, you can bring any questions you have about the program to that too, and we'll cover that too. Good question, Stacy. Let me know if that answers your questions or if you have anything else on that. Okay, I'm scrolling back. Amy was at 2,300 for 6 months and then 2,400 for 6 months. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome that you were there for that long and really built muscle, because it sounds like you did. And then now you are in a cut, and I imagine it's working pretty well, but how's your cut going? And then you're at the stage, Amy, where you want to apply like nutrient timing and optimize different aspects of your nutrition beyond calories and macros. Like we'll spend a whole week in the program talking about nutrient timing, right? And optimizing the year before, the after, during your training, potentially intra-workouts, all of that stuff. Okay. Ariel said, let me read through this. Okay, so what are my thoughts on the body having different having a set point weight at different calorie intakes. So I think it depends on, let me read the example. So first, I think it depends the level you're at, right? It sounds like you were listening to a bikini prep contest. So if they had someone who does a bikini prep contest, and if they're on a podcast or doing a podcast, and they're probably at a little bit of an elite or more advanced level, right? And so when you are peaking for a show, you're getting to a very, very low body fat percentage, right? Which to sustain, to get there, right, they get to lower calories, right? But when you are at stage ready, those people are not going to maintain that shape, right? If they wanted to maintain it, right, they could for maybe a few months afterwards, but it would really it would really suffer their health. And then because of that, they would then decrease their metabolism, impact hormones, right, and put them in a position to put on body fat. So that's why most of them do not do that, right? And instead they reverse diet out. And because they are at such a low body fat percentage, right, they will put on some of the body fat that they have gained or that they have lost before, but only because they're at like very low body fat percentages. Where a lot of the ladies I work with, right, they're going to be like, they're going to look like they work out, but they're not going to a kind of a low body fat percentage that is unhealthy, if that makes sense. Which definitely, if you're an elite competitor, you do get to that point when you step on stage. Like for me, when I stepped on stage, it was my first competition, and I had a coach who did it in a very healthy way. But even so, I just got very lean, and that decreased some of my muscle mass, and that also didn't really support my hormones. I had to reverse out and really support my hormones afterwards. Good question. Amy, I'm always hungry. Okay, so Amy, it sounds like it could be some blood sugar management, and that's what I would look into there. So I have a glucose monitor. I don't know who's joining us so late, but we'll see. I have a glucose monitor that I track sorry. Hello to who just joined us. I track my glucose rate in the morning fasted, but then also 2 hours after I eat. I don't do it every single day, but 2 hours after I eat, because your blood sugars, right, should be kind of stable, and then they'll increase after you eat, but not by extreme amount, and then they'll come back down in level. And so I'm wondering if there's either big swings for yours or something's going on there that's creating that hunger for you, right? Because if you know you're at that surplus, or you're at you're definitely eating close to that, then that could be a driver there. And so yeah, another thing could be what's the macro allocation breakout there specifically to you. So it would be hard for me to tell without all the additional information, but that's something else I'd look into too. Right? And like, when are you having those carbs? That's another question, right, in relation to your workout. Stacy said, awesome, thank you. You are welcome, Stacy. Yeah, Amy, that made sense for sure. Amy said, cut's going well. Abs is where my opportunities are. Ariel said, thank you so much for your time. I love what you're doing for women. Gonna go read with my daughter. You are welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Enjoy your time with your daughter. All right, you guys, I'm gonna see if you guys have any other questions. And I'm going to add the Create Your Shape link to the group chat. So you guys will have that if you want to join us, or if you want to apply and schedule a consult and learn more, that is there for you too. Any other questions you guys have? It's about time for me to eat too. All right, the last thing I'll share is today I went to the grocery store and went to the gym. And in the gym, I was feeling super weak and just like lacking that like oomph and that power. And then I went to the grocery store and I found myself in the candy aisle, which like now that I eat it like enough, I never craved sweets or candy or anything like that. And I was like looking at different bags and looking at their nutrition label and their macros. And then I was like, wait a minute, why is this happening? Like, let me work backwards to see. And yesterday, I kind of went through the past 24 to 72 hours. And yesterday I did not eat enough. I was hundreds of calories short. It was just kind of a off different day, a busier day than normal. And that was exactly why. Like I knew exactly what was happening. And it's so funny because things like that would happen all the time back in the day. I would just never put the two and two together. Or especially like outside of the gym, right? If you're just like having a day on the lake or the beach or going on a hike or snowboarding, skiing, anything like that, I would just think I was tired, or of course I'm tired, I went skiing. But now that I'm like actually fueled, it's the difference is so great. And I had one of my ladies share, she was like, I went skiing the whole weekend and I was able to keep up. Like I've never like been able to like go before. And I'm like, yes, you got all that fuel now. So gotta eat to compete. So I love to share this message about eating enough, but also reverse dieting, and then also share that that's what I help ladies through. It's the first step to building your shape and decreasing body fat. So make sure that if you are in this position to definitely join the Create Your Shape Ladies. We get started June 6th. But enrollment is ending this Sunday because I do have everyone get blood work done and get a DEXA scan done before then. All right, you guys, let me know, shoot me an email or schedule your consult if you have any questions. All right, have a good rest of your night. Bye.